Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to 5 ways British and American farmland is very different. And I mean, if I was to say, just based off what you can tell, is obviously the farmland in the US is going to be a lot more spread out because there's so much more space for it. So I mean, I guess with that, just farms in general in the US are a lot bigger, if that will mean anything in this video. But yeah, we're going to check this out and see if that will actually sort of stand true or whatever. But that will be the case. I'm almost certain that the bigger, if there's like a comparison of the biggest farms in the US, they would probably be the size of 5 or 10 of the biggest farms in the UK. Although there are some very like in the UK there are places that there are no humans that live there really. So there's a lot of space for farmland. So you've got these big spaces that you can use, but I just feel like it'll probably be spread out from different farms. But maybe not. Maybe I'll be surprised by that. But we're going to check this out. Hopefully going to enjoy. And yeah, let's just jump into this.
There are only 5 million sheep in the US, or 1 sheep for every 65 people, which perhaps explains why a sixth of Americans have insomnia.
Oh, you got, when you fall asleep, you got to think of the sheep jumping or whatever. Oh, come on.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and
I'm very slow, so I'm proud of myself.
America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to farmland. Neither country, of course, is a stranger to farmland, and everybody the world over needs it. For farmers, these are places of intense work day in and day out. For the rest of us, they are those mysterious places you drive past on the interstate wondering what's going on in that barn. And this is true in both countries, but having flown over the two of them, both in real life and on Flight Simulator, I've come to realise there are some stark differences. And a quick disclaimer for Uncle Toby, who himself is a farmer. This is not a video exploring the differences between farming practices, but rather the visual differences that you encounter when you drive past a farm, or fly over it, or secretly trespass. Don't trespass. And so without further ado, here are...
I think that's even like a similarity in the UK. Like, one similarity with that is the fact that I think people who own farms in the UK, a lot of them will own guns for many reasons. So that's one similarity you can probably see. I'd assume a lot more in the US will own guns, and there's a lot more situations where people have been shot and stuff. But I think farmers do actually own guns in the UK, or a lot of them do anyway.
6 ways that British and American farmland is very different.
Size, there we go.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. When it comes to these kind of comparisons, size isn't everything, unless Britain comes out on top. Now, I don't think anybody is going to be too surprised to discover that the United States has more farmland than the United Kingdom. It makes sense, after all, the United States is about 41 times larger. But what if we did this? What if we took each country and looked at the land and then worked out what percentage of that land was farmland? Okay. Well, some interesting and some would say surprising details start to emerge, forcing me to talk like a BBC presenter from...
I mean, the population density would still make me think the US will have a much higher percentage, just because it's such a small area in the UK and the population density is insane.
The 1950s, I'll stop that now. Firstly, roughly 44% of the United States is agricultural land, and when I say that out loud, that sounds like a lot, given of course how large the United States is. But when you look at a map of America and you consider the fact that much of that farmland is contained either within the Midwest, the Great Plains, or the South, it suddenly doesn't feel like a lot, at least to my British brain. This is the majority of England. I mean, the majority of England really just kind of looks like this. And my instinct for the first time in...
just more flat in general. That's a bit too hilly for my liking.
21 years was correct. A staggering 70% of the UK's land is used for agricultural purposes.
Really? What?
Meaning that percentage-wise, farmland is to the UK what water is to the earth. Actually, come to that, so is water. On the other hand, there's one difference that isn't quite so sizable. This.
Colour.
Lost in the pond fanatics around the globe are probably shaking their fist at the screen right now thinking, Lawrence, how could you include colour when a few weeks ago you said this? I grew up near farming areas that were not dissimilar to what we're seeing now. Different patches of earth, green, brown and yellow, just like this. And the answer is I was busy flying a plane and didn't have time for facts. But if you've ever visited farmland in either country, you'll probably notice that Britain has more vibrant greenliness. And what do I mean by greenliness? Well, that does for the word green what the word cleanliness does for the word clean. In other words, I'm just trying to get a word in the dictionary. Basically, Britain's green pastures are greener than Americans' green pastures. Now, there's a misconception out there that Britain is somehow unique in having bright yellow fields that produce rapeseed. And the reason that that's a misconception is that America has them too, and they're everywhere. The difference is that the crop here is wisely not referred to as rapeseed, but canola. That said, whatever you call it, it's not the most highly produced crop in either country. So let's take a look.
Wait, so is it called canola oil then, and rapeseed oil? Because I've only heard of rapeseed oil, but I think I've heard of the term canola oil, unless I'm just making it up now.
At what is?
Crops. Oh, there's going to be a big difference here. I mean, in the US, it's probably going to be a lot more diverse, and like, because some of the stuff will grow in more tropical regions, you'll have, I don't know, just more exotic foods pretty much. What's the most exotic food that we can grow in the UK? Strawberries? Probably.
There might be no more important element when it comes to the differences between British and American farmland than crops. On the one hand, there are many kinds of crops that are grown in both countries, but
crop?
each country has its
Is a strawberry even considered a crop? I don't know.
priorities. For example, in the United States, the most widely produced crop is corn. Every year, the United States produces about 14 billion bushels of corn. That's about 43 bushels per person. What is a bushel? Right, well, to put into context how large that is, soybean comes in at second with 4 billion bushels. And from experience, I can tell you that those two crops are practically all you see in the state of Indiana. And yet, it's not at the epicenter. Meanwhile, the most widely produced crop in the UK is wheat, unless you include riding crops, which you can get in Soho. But since I'm only
Why is that? Could corn not grow in the UK or vice versa? I'm sure they grow either in both as well, right?
now learning about bushels, I had to do
I guess maybe because you're not competing in the market. So if you grow wheat and then the US is growing corn, it's not going to like change the prices as much. I don't know.
some complicated math to see how wheat production in the UK compared to corn production in the US. And this is because A, UK farms don't seem to report measurements by that unit, and B, if they did, a British bushel is measured differently to an American bushel. Yeah, I might have to write some sort of bushel conversion song. However, the UK produced 16 million tons of wheat in 2019. And according to one of those unit converters on Google, this equates to about 500 million American bushels, or, 9 bushels for every Brit. So, American corn production wins. On the other hand, America produces wheat too, but only 5.5 bushels for every person. It's a small victory.
Oh, they do.
America's obsession with corn is second only perhaps to its obsession with rectangles. And observationally, this obsession seems to extend to the layout of its farmland. Already flying over Kansas, you can spot kind of a lot of rectangles. Not all of them, some of them aren't even four-sided in any capacity. But, it looks like a huge share of them at least have 4 sides. And yes, we really are talking about this. In the UK, surprise, surprise, pasture shapes are a little more eccentric. I
Oh, really?
recognised there wasn't too much I could do
Oh, that is. I didn't realise. I thought it'd be the same. What the fuck?
to stave off the yawns that are probably coming out of your mouths right now. But notice these different patches. Look how curved they are. Look how decidedly non-rectangular they are. You realise that I'm adding urgency into my voice just to make this that bit more exciting. I'm surprised, actually. I'm quite surprised. There are a strange amount of rectangles up here from the air. Now that I'm here, I thought there weren't. But I would say that square shapes are heavily outnumbered by the more unusual shapes. Like there's a triangle, for example. In many ways, an entire video called something like 5 farming objects I only encountered after moving to America could have been devoted to the difference between British and American farming objects. But to keep things simple, I'm just going to focus on one object from each country. Something that you're more likely to encounter on American farms and
Okay, so one thing you're going to find in an American farm, a red barn.
not so much on British, are silos.
Those as well. What actually are these for? Do they contain wheat and stuff? I don't know what these even do. I've seen them in games that I played though. I never know what they are.
Some US farms have several silos. They're those cylindrical things that look like they're about to send crops into space. The object, if you want to call it that stands out on
British ones. I have absolutely no idea. What's a British thing that you'll see in a farm? I don't know. I have no idea.
farmlands are dry stone
Oh, okay. There we go then. That makes more sense now I think about it.
walls. Basically a wall that's constructed without mortar. This means that cows are probably just two opposable thumbs away from escaping and wreaking revenge on humanity. And speaking of animals, ... that's ellipses spoken. Once again, there's a lot of crossover between the two countries as to which animals are used as livestock. But when it comes down to the animals that you're more likely to see on each country's farms, the difference is like Iron Man, in that it's stark. In Britain, the three most famous sounds are Big Ben, the pouring of the kettle, and baa. That was a sheep. And that's because Britain, nay, the United Kingdom, that was a horse sound, is home to 23 million sheep.
And wait, he said there's only 5 million sheep in the US. Why is there so much more here? What's the reasoning behind that? Like, lamb. I don't even eat lamb, so I don't know what... I hate lamb, to be honest. It's not my go-to meat at all. When I have like lamb chops, I don't like it. So I'm kind of confused.
Which equates to about 1 sheep for every 3 Brits, and I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere. And if a Royal Rumble broke out, the UK sheep would absolutely crush their American counterparts, who are outnumbered by about 5 to 1. That's right, there are only 5 million sheep in the US, or 1 sheep for every 65 people.
So, what, again, he's probably going to say why, maybe he's not, but the reasoning why, because, is it the fur? Is it mainly because of the fur, and maybe because the UK is, I don't know, colder, even though it's not, because certain parts of the US are colder? I don't know.
Which perhaps explains why 1/6 of Americans have insomnia. The main reason for this is that lamb and mutton just don't carry the same cultural significance that they do in the UK.
But I don't eat lamb. Unless there's other lamb things that... What types of lamb is there? Let me just see. Maybe I'm just being stupid. What types... Oh, for God's sake. Of meat can you make from lamb? Lamb chops, lamb shoulder, lamb loin, lamb shank, leg of lamb, rack of lamb, and ground lamb. I don't eat lamb. I don't eat it. Maybe I'd like it. Maybe I have had it more than I realised, but I don't eat. I never get lamb from the shops. I've never got it on my own from the shops.
Instead, Americans have a stronger appetite for another animal. I think it was the philosopher Bart Simpson who once profoundly implored, "Don't have a cow, man." But did America bloody listen? No. It has more cattle than Britain has people. In fact, there are 9 entire states where cattle outnumber humans and children. And now I really am afraid of the opposable thumbs thing. In total, there are roughly 94 million cattle in the United States, about 1 for every 3.5
How much in the UK? Because I eat beef more than anything.
people.
Or beef or chicken. I eat chicken more, but beef's up there.
And don't get me wrong, there's no shortage of cows in the UK, about 10 million, but that still only equates to 1 cow for every 7 people. So I could cheer about the victory of our sheep until the cows come home, but in America, they often do. Throughout this video, you see me flying over the farming pastures of Kansas and Lincolnshire in England. If you would like to see the full video with my commentary, why not become a $5 patron of Lost in the...
Let me just see. What was I going to search? How many chickens are in the US? Oh, God. In the UK first. 29 million laying hens and 116 million broilers in the UK. In England alone, there are... Okay. How many chickens are there in the US? What? This means about 1.5 billion chickens are alive in the US at any given time. Most of these broiler chickens, but many are also laying hens. China has 5 billion? What the damn. Oh, I do love chicken, man. It is good meat. But that was a bit of a surprise. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. It was just a little look into how this is. And I guess if you're a farmer, let me know your thoughts on this. And we have a farm. In fact, we have a family farm in Indiana. Every year we rotate between soybeans and corn. I saw a tomato field one time and I didn't know what to do with myself. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. And until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.